All right. So, Miss Nicole Harding, what led you into the industry? Well, her father was in connection with our CEO for Title and Escrow and knew that Nicole needed a job. So Nicole actually was planning to get her master's in teaching and ended up really enjoying being a title rep. So she never looked back. She never went to school, back to school to get that master's. Nicole, I think that should be a future goal. Have you ever lived in multiple states? She was born in Portland, Oregon, and moved to Seattle when she was 6 years old. Her favorite book, Gifts of Imperfection. That sounds like an amazing book. What's something that we don't know about her? She took ballet, tap, and jazz dance for 10 years. I've always tried to get her to do the splits, but and then if she could live any place in the world, where would it be right now? And she said, Italy. Are you a good listener or a talker? What are you? Guess what Nicole is? She's a listener.
Thank you, Teresa. I thought, and Teresa and I didn't talk about this before, but I'm actually going to have a little guest today for us. I'm going to play a video of Troy St. George, our vice president. So the last time I presented, I talked about the title report and I went through it so you could see the product we produce, right? Part of being a title company is we are a service company, but we also produce a product, that title report that takes anywhere from 3 to sometimes 14 days, depending on the market we're living in. And just all the teams that touch that title report, starting with the examiner, the title officer, we as title reps, Teresa and I pride ourselves on reviewing that title report for our agents before they go live. So they have an idea of what's on title, what their sellers are looking at. And then we also do courtesy reviews for those buyer agents that have no time to write an offer right now, and to get a copy of that title report, we put our eyes on it. We let them know if there's any red flags or things that you should be leery of. So we thought, or I thought it would be fun just to introduce Troy, and then I'm going to share a video of he's just talks through what are the important things about a title report. So Troy St. George, he's our executive vice president for CW Title and Escrow and oversees all title and escrow teams. He has been in the title insurance industry for more than 25 years. He's worked in Cowlitz, King, Snohomish, Pierce, and Thurston counties. And Troy has a multifaceted experience in our industry, having held positions at every level, including sales rep, title examiner, senior title officer, title unit manager, and agency manager roles. So he is, Teresa and I can attest, we go to him for any question. And if we want customer service, it's Troy. So let me share this great, and he talks like he's at a class, because we've used this for a class. So let me get this queued up and then you can see Troy.
Hi guys, welcome to CW Title's class. We're so excited you could be here today with us. I'm Troy St. George, CW Title, Vice President, manage our title and escrow operations. In all of my years of doing title insurance, I won't tell you how many there have been, one of the main questions I get from brokers is Troy, tell us what the top 1 or 2 things that all brokers should know when they get their title commitment. Now, luckily, if you work with CW Title, you've got our title reps that are doing their title reviews for you. But I still think it's super important for all of our broker clients to look out for at least these 1 or 2 things. You still want to look at it, but these are kind of some real highlight ones that can really help us stay out of some trouble later on. The main number 1 thing I would say is look at the vesting. There's a reason why we put it on the very front page. It's number 3, it's down near the bottom, and it says title to hereby in this commitment is vested in. It's a fancy way of saying the ownership. If you're the listing agent and you look at that vesting and that is not who you are working with, then we've got some questions that need to be asked or answered. If there are people on there who you are not working with, we want to ask and answer those questions, because things like divorces, things like parties who have passed away, if we have corporations or LLCs. We had one transaction where we had a party that there was no divorce record in the public record. We issued our title commitment. Obviously, we don't know who you're dealing with. You know your clients much better than we do. And when it finally got into escrow, they had a 15-day close, and we found out that one of the parties was on there that there was a divorce in a different state. So then we worked with the seller to track down their ex-husband, who was living in a remote part of Africa, and to try and track down the documents necessary to get that taken care of. We don't want those surprises. Look at the vesting. Let's make sure that if there's people on there that you're not dealing with, then we need to make sure that we get those answered as well. The other thing is as I mentioned, deceased parties or people that have passed away. Oftentimes people don't do anything with that if they don't probate and that sort of thing, and we often have to bring in heirs, and that brings in different layers, and that brings in your contract, who is signing your contract and who needs to be doing that. So we had one situation which was a lack of probate. We're actually working through it as we speak, where the seller has passed away, and now there are 3 heirs, and one of the 3 heirs does not want 1/3 of the proceeds going to their brothers, so they're now going to probate their estate. They've kind of pivoted, and we're actually a week after our contract closing date, so we're extending out. Luckily, we've got some understanding buyers in this situation, but you never know who these people are and what they're going to do, so we want to make absolutely sure that we're getting out in front of that as soon as possible. That's one of the reasons why we've always said order your listing title as soon as possible, so that we can start to vet these things out, especially in a crazy market like we have now, which is things are turning over so quickly. We want to get started on that right away. And the other one is LLCs, corporations, trusts. If you see that as in title, because oftentimes you're working with trustees, they may or may not have told you that their property is being held in a trust. So when we see that, we're going to need to get the documentation to make sure that the authorized parties are signing. I one time had an escrow or a title assistant approach me because we were insuring these documents. They came in, and it was, we'll call it Bob's Construction. And Bob's Construction was they had flipped a house and they were conveying it to a new buyer, and he said, "Hey Troy, is Bob's Construction authorized to sign, or is Bob authorized to sign on behalf of Bob's Construction?" And I said, "I don't know. Have you looked at the LLC operating agreement for Bob's Construction?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, you better get that, because if he's not, and Bill is actually authorized to sign on behalf of Bob's Construction, we've got a really big problem. We've got the wrong person signing." I told them, and I make the joke all the time, I could run around and sell a lot of Microsoft property or Boeing property, and if I'm not authorized to sign and nobody's checking, I can get really rich doing that. I'm not authorized to sign on behalf of Microsoft or Boeing, but if nobody's going to check, then a lot of bad things can happen, and buyers are going to have bad deeds, and Microsoft and Boeing are going to want to make sure that they still own that property. So we need to see that documentation to ensure that who is actually selling is authorized to do so. So check out that vesting, super important, number one thing. It goes to a lot of the fundamental assumptions that we make living in a society like we have, that people who are selling property are actually the ones who own it. And it's not always that case, or there's legal things that have to be done to make sure that takes place, and we get a good, clear title to our buyers. And the second thing that I would do is, and I think is super important, is to scan the exceptions on the title commitment. Again, we're looking at those, our reps are when they're doing their title reviews for you. But again, we don't know what your clients what they're going to do with the property. If they're going to build a swimming pool in the backyard and there's an easement in there across the back, then that's something that that your clients should know about, especially obviously if you're representing purchasers. The other particular thing to look for: surveys, covenants, conditions, restrictions. We again don't know what your buyers are going to use the property for, but also monetary encumbrances. If they have 5 recorded deeds of trust on there, and the total amount of those deeds of trust is 1.7 million, but you're listing the property at 1.1, something probably isn't right, and there's some work that we're going to have to do to clear out those unrecorded deeds of trust. We actually run into this quite frequently, especially in times when lenders are super busy, where we have refinance booms in those situations where they're putting all of their resources into the front end. They're not taking care of the loans that they're refinancing and paying off to clear them out of the public record. Also, oftentimes with private party deeds of trust, individuals that we're loaning money don't necessarily know that once it's paid off, they have to reconvey it. So these can be real big challenges at closing, and we don't want to wait until we get escrow involved, because again, with the quick closing timelines, we just want to be in a better position than that. I had a situation with this where we had a private party deed of trust, and we've been working on trying to get the reconveyance paperwork. The parties that made the loan originally, it was a seller carryback like we see, and the original beneficiaries had passed away, so we went to their heirs, of which were scattered across the west coast of the United States. So we tracked down their information. I put on my Sherlock Holmes hat. We tracked down that information. We found them. We got them to sign all of the paperwork except for one. There were 5 of them total, and the one that wouldn't sign it saw dollar signs, and he said, "Oh, maybe I can get some money out of this." Well, we were very careful in telling him that he was going to that there was a fiduciary and a beneficiary's obligation to release that deed of trust upon full payment, of which we had evidence of. And ultimately they signed the documents. We got them to the trustee company, and we got it reconveyed on the absolute morning of closing. We had a holdback potential in our back pocket, but there was a question as to how much equity they had. So it was a really complicated situation. Let's not have those complicated situations. These review items and these top 2 things are to avoid any potential delays at closing, any potential surprises that can come up. There are enough unpredictable ones and enough uncontrollable ones that can come up in our real estate transactions. Let's try to control the ones that we can. So have a great class today.
Well said, Troy. So just wanted to shake it up a little bit, because you hear us talk all the time, but kind of fun to bring Troy to the table this morning. And just thank you for listening. Nicole with CW Title.